Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. You know, this has been a crazy rivalry between LSU and Alabama. I said the Auburn week that there has not been a more storied rivalry over the last 30 years than LSU and Auburn, and that's true because of all the crazy events that happened in that series. There has not been a more heated rivalry over the last 15 years in LSU's situation than Alabama. There has not been a more significant rivalry to LSU than Alabama over the last 15 years. And Alabama, no question, has gotten the upper hand of that over the Nick Saban era. They've gotten the upper hand over everyone. Clemson's the only one who can kind of look at them and go, hey, we held our own there. Everybody else took their lumps. But LSU punched back as well as anybody in the Southeastern Conference and did have their moments. And what I wanted to do today as we ease into Bama week, I'm not going to get too deep into X's and O's today, not too deep into what is going to happen on Saturday night. I just wanted to get some good vibes rolling here in Baton Rouge. So we're going to take a little trip down memory lane here in the Saban era and just kind of relive some of the great moments between LSU and Alabama. I've been fortunate to attend a number of these games, and man, we'll remember all of them because they were all so impactful. In this era of the Southeastern Conference, you could not accomplish what you wanted to accomplish at LSU without beating Alabama. Texas A&M found that out in 2020. They had one of the best seasons they've ever had in the history of their school. They got dusted by Alabama, which means they couldn't play for the Southeastern Conference Championship, and they couldn't play for the National Championship. That's the rule that has basically been set in this league, the SEC West, and that still holds true this weekend for LSU. Now, moving into next year, there is no SEC West. There is no SEC East. You just got to go win some games. So it changes the dynamics a little bit, and it's not going to feel exactly the same. But it's felt the same way for 15 years around here. You don't beat Alabama, your goals are pretty much out the window. And so let's look back at some of those wins over Alabama where LSU was able to get some wins and achieve a few things. Look, back in 2007, I was in Tuscaloosa, literally on the top row of the upper deck. I had my back against the wall, the top row of the upper deck in Bryant-Denny. And LSU went to Tuscaloosa as one of the top 5 teams in the country. It was Nick Saban's first year. It was a team that had already suffered a couple of losses. And LSU was a significant favorite to win the game. And we always talk about 2007. Oh, my God, the Florida game. LSU went for 5 fourth downs. Oh, my God, the Auburn game, Flynn to Bird, the 2 triple overtime losses. What you don't always talk about, or at least I don't, is how dicey things got in Tuscaloosa. In fact, LSU, with under 3 minutes to go, had to convert a third down, Flynn to Doucette for a touchdown to tie the game. Alabama got the ball back, and with a minute 52 left in the game, Bama had a 3rd and 12 from their own 29, and Bo Pelini said, hey, Chad Jones, let's go.
4 seconds on the play clock. They just do get it snapped. Blitz coming. John Parker Wilson fumble. LSU has recovered at the 2-yard line. Curtis Taylor recovers it. Chad Jones, number 3. Got in on John Parker Wilson. Hester is the deep back in the eye. Jacob Hester dives over, touchdown.
I mean, you're trailing that game with 3 minutes to go. Doucette on a 4th down touchdown. Chad Jones with a huge strip sack that rolls all the way down to the 2, and LSU cashes it in. Our morning show host punches it in, and LSU wins at 41-34. There was 2010 in Tiger Stadium. That was my senior year at LSU. Alabama was number 3 in the country, coming to play number 6 LSU here in Baton Rouge. And LSU trailed in the first half at halftime 7-3. Could not move the ball at all. Just no offensive ability in that game whatsoever. Came out in the third quarter, and it wasn't a ton better for the first 7 minutes. But with 8 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the third quarter, LSU finally struck with a big play. You heard that right. That's a November game. Jordan Jefferson hadn't thrown a touchdown since the North Carolina game to open. They hadn't moved the ball for 2.5 quarters, and bang, 70-plus to Ruben Randall, and Mark Barron could not run him down. At this point, Bama is Bama. In 2007, Bama wasn't Bama. They were Bama at this point. You knew that was going to be a heavyweight fight, and it was. And Alabama retook the lead. It was 14-13 tied with 9 minutes and 51 seconds to go, and LSU had 4th and 1 from the Bama 25. Les could kick a field goal there. You've got a quality field goal kicker to try to take a lead with 9 minutes and 51 seconds to go, but instead they sent the offense out for a 4th and 1 play from inside Bama territory. Chills thinking about it because I was in the student section that night, and man, that 4th and 1 call was so beautiful, and I was right down there on that side of the field, and they toss it to Ridley, and D'Angelo Peterson peels off around the back. I cannot believe D'Angelo Peterson did not score on that play, but he did, and they stepped out of the 2, and Ridley had to cash it in at the end. But LSU, of course, got a dramatic win. Huge play by Drake Nevis in that game to strip Greg McElroy and fall on it, and LSU got a massive win that 2010 day in Baton Rouge. And you know what that led to the following year. Unequivocally, the most energized stadium I have ever been in my entire life was pregame for LSU and Alabama in 2011. LSU and Alabama in 2012 was great, but LSU had already lost in 2012. It didn't quite have the revenge factor for us was still there, and if you were there that night, you know. But this was the biggest game I've ever seen in the regular season with those 2 undefeated teams, and I'll never forget being in the stadium that night in Tuscaloosa. I was covering the game. I was in the press box. I was down on the field for overtime. And look, I thought, what play is best to grab from a defensive battle like the one we saw with just 100,000 pros on the field that night? And I thought, man, 6-6, just over 11 minutes to go, 4th quarter. Bama's got the ball. They are driving. Trent Richardson busts a big run. Bryant Denny was about to come undone at the seams. They're down to the LSU 28-yard line, and Nick Saban just flat got cute, and it created one of the better memories in LSU football history. I'll tell you my perspective from that play. I was in the press box for that play, and Marquise Mays, who's a wide receiver, drops back to throw it, and when he let the ball go, Williams was 10 to 12 yards clear of anybody in purple and gold. So the play worked from a design perspective. Unfortunately, Marquise Mays was playing on a bum ankle, and he's a wide receiver, so he can't really throw. And he left it hanging, and Eric Reed is a better athlete than that tight end, and he just went and made the play. An absolutely unbelievable play, because if he doesn't make that, LSU loses. That Alabama's going to score from the 1-yard line, and that game's over. LSU wasn't going to score a touchdown that night. And so to make that play in that spot was truly unbelievable. And then the LSU defense in overtime rises to the occasion, gets the sack, knocks Bama back into deep field goal range. They bring Foster out. He can't make it, and it sets up Drew Allamont to win the game. I was on the field for overtime. It was really crowded down there on the sidelines. Aaron Andrews was standing right next to me for that, and I very vividly remember the ball sailed through the uprights, and I was being the very unbiased reporter that I was at that time for Viking Bengals Insider, and I ran out on the field, not like arms extended. I ran to a certain spot. I wanted to see Nick Saban walk off the field. That is a wildly petty thing to do, but I did it anyway. So I said, hey, they got their revenge a couple months later, and it was an awful night in the Superdome, but that one was really, really special. And LSU, of course, went back in 2019. Y'all know that one well. I watched that one by myself in my house because I was doing pre- and post-game back here in Baton Rouge, and I will never forget my reaction when LSU went down and scored that first touchdown to Jamar Chase.
LSU traveled to Tuscaloosa to take
we don't have that was a wrong deal. So either I thought that was 2022. All right, my bad. But either way, they went down and hit that touchdown to Jamar Chase, and when they did, I remember being in my living room and screaming, "We've got a quarterback now." I wasn't screaming to anybody in particular, but that's what it felt like it was always going to take for LSU to win. They were going to have to get a quarterback to go in there and do it. And they found a quarterback who could go in there and do it. And that drive set the tone for that night that, hey, we've been fighting with one hand behind our back for all these years. We found a way to come do it one time at 9-6, but we couldn't do it after that. We brought in Leonard Fournette, and we brought in all these high-powered offensive lines and running attacks, and did not have enough juice to get home. But they did finally in that game, and I thought that the touchdown they threw to Clyde Edwards-Helaire before the half was as fun of a flurry as I can recall. And Casey, it's the second bite on that I sent you, because you realize that LSU had done a good job to move the football, but then they had Waddle that ran back the kick, and then LSU comes back and scores again. They hit Terrace Marshall, and then LSU gets the pick. Phillips has the interception right before the half, and you've got a 13-point lead, and you're thinking, man, can we possibly pay this off for a touchdown right before the half after the interception? There would probably be some times in LSU football where you'd be like, hey, we'd really like to slow things down, just get the field goal, we'll go in up 16, that's fine. But that's just not how this 2019 team was wired.
Looking left, delivers the football. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got it in the left corner. Touchdown, Tigers! First down, pass play, score.
You can hear it in Chris Blair's voice too when they hit that touchdown. It's like, oh my gosh, we're running these guys off the field. And Bama, as they do, they fought back and they hit Devontae Smith for the big touchdowns, and you just had to count on the offense to get it done one more time. And that goes back to my deal where, like, finally we've got a quarterback who can do this, and he certainly did it in this game, and Clyde paid it off with the touchdown late to win the game.
Snap to Burrow. Hand to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Goes near side. Stiff arms a man. Gets to the 5. Breaks through. Stays upright. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Tigers!
You can hear it in Chris's voice. That was that game. You'll never convince an Alabama fan of it because they've done what they've done and because this final score is what it was. They needed a crazy punt return where they almost ripped Waddle's helmet off. They needed a fluke play where Stingley wasn't looking. And then whatever the last touchdown they scored was, 3 of their touchdowns, I'm not giving them a ton of credit for just because I can this far down the line. I'm not going to give them a ton of credit for. So I think it was a blowout. We'll take the 6-point win as it were. And then that brings us to last year, 2022. I was not at this one either. Y'all pretty well know, I think, at this point that I had a family wedding to be at. I was down in New Orleans, but I was watching. I was at the venue. Bar was open, and they needed to keep it open for a couple hours after that one. But we have Chris Blair's call of Brian Kelly's decision to go forward on the final play of the game.
Kelly says, we're going to win this one.
I mean, I'll have to take y'all's word for that one. I'm sure it was pretty good. I'm sure it was pretty electric in there. I'm sure it was a lot of fun in Baton Rouge that night. I had a lot of fun in New Orleans that night. My aunt, whose daughter got married, came up and apologized. I said, look, Aunt Nance, we won. Bar's open. We'll be just fine. But that's just a little trip down memory lane. Of course, I could toss the Superdome in January of 2012 in there. I could toss in the game in November of 2012 with the screen to Yeldon. Those weren't as fun. These were the great memories when there was plenty of bumps in the roads, but those were the great memories between LSU and Alabama. That game will still mean a ton next year when LSU and Alabama play, no doubt about it, but it just doesn't have that fight for the Western crown feel to it. I don't know next year, but it certainly did for the last 16 years, and there have been some really, really fun moments in that series. So, hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.